All right. Welcome to the Carter Center's roundtable today, the blues and resistance, the music of struggle from the US to Palestine. We are delighted to welcome the artists that created this gorgeous piece of music that is up for consideration for a Grammy Award. So put on your best headphones. The artists that created this gorgeous piece of music. Okay, that is up for consideration for a Grammy Award. The artists that created this gorgeous piece technical of music. Difficulties. That is up for consideration Jason. For a Grammy Award. Technical difficulties. Technical difficulties. Jason. I'm going to mute myself and we are going to listen to the song. Technical difficulties.
Now, baby, please don't go. Now, baby, please don't go. Now, baby, please don't go back to third ward. You know I love you so. Baby, please don't go. You got me way down here. You got me way down here. Before I be your dog, I'll make you walk the log. Now, baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go. Now don't you call my name. Now don't you call my name. You got me way down here wearing ball chains. Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go. I'll be your man done gone. I'll be your man done gone. He left the town for me, had his shackles on. Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't Now turn your lamp down low. Now turn your lamp down low. I beg you all night long, baby, please don't go back to third ward. Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go.
Did we get to hear the song all the way through is my question.
Oh yeah.
With success.
Yes. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but wow, wow, wow. This song is one of the most emotional, beautiful pieces of music. Why? Because it fuses these experiences through the instruments, the vocals, the writing. And so I'd really like to ask you, Cam, to talk about what was it like to sing inside this music. This is not your typical rhythm section, blues rhythm section. That oud beneath it just vibrates. What was it like?
It was a challenge at first, mainly because we weren't together. Everything was recorded remotely in the middle of the pandemic. So it wasn't, the same as when I can like actually look at a player or look at Kareem right in front of me and see where he is considering the one in the music to be. So it actually took me a couple of weeks to get it right, because every time I would get to the chorus in the song or get to the verses in the song, I would be off from where his next round was starting. And so once I did get the pacing correct, I was able to just really have a lot of fun with it. In terms of actually like just being within the song, that was pretty easy for me. I feel like the blues is something that is just a part of who I am, and so singing it was breezy, really, and it was more so about like trying to make sure that there were certain elements that maintained its authenticity, especially at the end. Um, Throwing that the choir that does the hums at the end was pretty important to me, mainly because blues is a break off of gospel, which is one of my foundations. And I feel like because we were so focused on almost doing this foundational blues song, but like making it our own, I loved having, that element there. It was challenging. I loved it. And, I can't wait to do more.
Well, there was a lyric in the piece about the third ward. And when you hear a piece of music, you have your imagination goes wild, like a place, it's a place. Tell us about that. Tell us about the place and the lyric, the story behind the lyric.
Yeah. So adding third ward was definitely Saman's idea, 1000%, which I loved. But third ward is a community in Houston. It's predominantly Black neighborhood. It's home to Texas Southern University, my alma mater, and it's honestly where I really, really came into my own as a young woman and found myself as an artist. And it just serves as such a creative hotspot here and has really put out so many different world-class musicians, from the Knoll sisters, Lisa E. Harris, just just a lot. And I am grateful to be, in that class of artists that have come out of that community. But the original song, which was written by Lightning Hopkins and refers to New Orleans, we wanted to have something that was representative of who we are and what it was that we were trying to do. And so by making it third ward, it became a lot more personal. And so listening to what Kareem was playing, it was easy to kind of just think about an actual person, think about someone that I didn't want to leave me. I've done a lot of loving, thankfully, in this life, and a lot of losing as well. And so I don't have issue tapping into the emotional side when I sing. It's just something that naturally happens. And so, it was nice just kind of thinking about these fictional people and their love story in the song and making it something that a listener could easily connect to and escape to.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, it comes across and you just connect with it immediately. And Kareem, I'd really like to ask you about sort of a similar question. This oud arrangement of this traditional blues is just stunning. The instrument, and of course the beautiful performance by Cam, it's all the emotion is there. What was it like to play this traditional blues with an Arabic and Palestinian instrument? How did that feel?
It felt really natural. It didn't feel weird. I think that when I'm playing it to somebody that perhaps isn't familiar with the instrument, I need to sort of perform it in a different way where the gesture is perhaps more full. Depends on your recording technique as well. If I'm sending it to Cam and Saman from over email or over WhatsApp or something, but the oud is tuned in a way very similar to the guitar, but it just lends itself to minor scales and it's fretless, so you can do the slide. The scale itself is very similar to playing the pentatonic scale that is in Sudanese music and in Nubian music. And also the rhythms, I tapped into sort of like Yemeni influences that I have, which is, it's just everything coming together on that instrument. And the blues is something that I grew up with. It's my first musical love. So something that just started out as an idea where I wanted to show someone, and actually this is what this instrument can do. As soon as then I heard Cam's vocals come in, I had to really step it up and want to create something that was a world for her to be able to weave in and out of. And again, what she said about not being able to look at the other performer while you're recording is really interesting, because I was basically going off playing blind, really. Like I wasn't looking at a sound wave, or I wasn't looking at anything like that. I was recording something she had sung to it, and then I was adding things over the top relating to sort of intonations that she had put in her performance. So the instrument itself and the scales are just so natural, and it was a dream to play with a voice like Cam's, really.
You mentioned the scales. The blues scale, of course, came over from enslaved people who were kidnapped and enslaved and brought across the Atlantic. And those scales from West Africa traveled with people.
Yeah.
And in the fields, enslaved people would be singing. This music eventually became spirituals and hymn music for Black people, for Black enslaved people. And of course, later, freed people developed the blues. This is the legacy of really the provenance of this music. So talk about the connection there, Kareem, between that experience and that provenance of that music and Arabic music. Where are those connections? How are they connected, and both in scale but also in culture and emotionally?
Well, I think that it's not talked about too much that a lot of the slaves that came over that were kidnapped and transported over were Muslim, and so African music tradition had already, for a long time, like melded with different influences from the Arab world, Arab-speaking world, through the Islamic empires, etc. So you have a lot of East African and West African music having influences of that. The main one being, you talked about the fields. There's evidence that the songs in the fields were very close to the rast scale in Arabic music, which the call to prayer is done in. So that scale had specifically from the call to prayer. So, the connection of spiritualness in this music has always been there, and would have been, I'm presuming, a source of comfort and strength through an unimaginable time. So a specific scale, the rast scale, which is very much like a C major with I'm trying to think classically, with a quarter third. I don't know, but then mixed with the pentatonic scales of Africa at the time, that is what you end up getting as a basic kind of blues scale. Obviously moved around, and then the bending of notes on either fretless instruments or with the pulling of a string or the bending of a string. So specifically, the rast scale, which was the call to prayer, or the adhan, that's called in Arabic.
It's right. We don't really hear about that. And I think what I love about this, especially this piece of music that brings it together, is, music is a universal language. It connects human beings to each other in a way that maybe nothing else does. All of the arts do, but music in particular, because of the frequency, the vibrations of the instruments, the voice, etc., brings us together and tells a common story. And isn't it true that the human struggle for freedom is expressed through music, and you find joy and suffering equally expressed in the music? Cam, I just thought of something I wanted to ask you, which is the other day when we were talking, you talked about how music is joy. Music, part of what we do with music is to be in joy and to express our joys and our sorrows. And we connect with each other with music to experience the good things in life, and not just to complain about things, even though we do that in blues and in every other form of music. We talk about what's going on, but we also have joy. And how important do you think that is in this music?
I mean, yeah, the joy I was referring to was the joy that comes with the escapism that shows up when you're allowed to create music like this. The fact that, we took the time to do this during the lockdown last year allowed me to really not have to focus on so much of the horrible just news that was popping up every day, all day. And music has always existed in that form, not only, just for people in mass, but especially for Black people, from the era of slavery through the emergence of blues, the emergence of jazz, reggae, everything. It has been here for us to say what we need to say. Even through what we see in hip hop today, it exists so that we can be free and express ourselves without punishment or suppression. And with this, being able to sing it the way that I did, I couldn't help but feel free, and I couldn't help but be free with it, because that's what the music was calling for me to do. And in anything that I sing to this day, I get that same feeling of relief. If I'm going through something, if I'm feeling anxious, it is a full-blown stress relief for me to sing. And I forget that sometimes, and I forget how lucky I am to be able to do it. But at the same time, I think a lot of people don't realize that they have that within themselves, not only to create music, but to sing. It might not be, the most perfect pitch or anything like that, but it is a form of release that is there for you. And I think that's why, we are able to find the joy that we do when we're listening to music, when we're consuming new art. It's just something that I think exists within us. And I know it's kind of like a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's how I feel.
No, that's exactly right. And I think I've heard this many times from people who are working for human rights in the US and people who are working for human rights everywhere in the world, including Palestine, that existence is resistance and joy is resistance, and human experience and connection is resisting oppression, just being able to do that in the way that every human being must be allowed to do. So I really want to bring in Saman Ashrawi here, the producer, the visionary, the person who put this all together, who had the idea. I have a affinity with you because as a person, as a creative, kind of where you get the ideas and you make it happen, is like, that must be an incredible joy for you to see this come together. Talk about how this came about, and why it was important to you to do this project, and how does it feel to listen? I bet you when you were in the booth, in the just listening to it when it happened, your mind must have been blown. So talk about that.
Oh yeah. So where this came from is a very special place. It started with a trip that I took to Palestine in 2019, which was my first trip going back as an adult. Went with my father. My father started the first rock and roll band in Palestine. They were called Al Bara'im. He and his siblings and his friends. And it was kind of like a research trip as I'm developing this project I'm working on about them. And as my uncle was kind of taking us around, you know, I saw some things that made me feel really happy, and like I felt like at home in a way I'd never felt before. But at the same time, there was a lot of stuff to be sad about that I saw, and it kind of made me think, you know, like there is a blues in being Palestinian. And on that same trip, I happened to meet Kareem, and I had those kind of feelings like percolating inside of me for a little while, and I was listening to the blues like I usually do, and I was listening to "Baby Please Don't Go," the Lightning Hopkins version, and I sent Kareem a message, and we didn't know each other very well. We had met on this trip, but we didn't know each other super well, so I kind of was like a little bit unsure if like I was asking too much of someone I didn't really know. But I was like, "Hey man, I've been listening to this Lightning Hopkins song. Like, I would love to hear what it sounds like on the oud." And I was like, you know, if you're not too busy, if you got a little bit of time and you feel like obliging this kind of like indulgent request, you know, I would love to hear what that sounds like. And he sent me back like a video recording of him playing, and I was just like, oh, this sounds incredible. Um, and you know, I've worked on some cool songs as a producer, but I still consider myself like a novice. Like I have a lot to learn. So it is like I didn't have like the original version that Kareem sent to me sounded great, sounded incredible, better than I could have imagined. But I didn't have like all the vision for like where it could go, like how it could develop. And so like when Kareem then sent me like more like developed versions of it, and then when I reached out to Cam, like, hey, do you want to sing on this? And then Cam's ideas came, like I'm just completely blown away by where it went. And I think for me, a big reason why this song feels good is because I grew up at a time where there were a lot of like Black artists who were making statements in support of Palestine. And I had always told my parents, like, I wish that we as Palestinians had done a better job of like receiving that solidarity. Like when Lupe Fiasco was first speaking out, for example, I felt like there was no one there to say like, thank you for putting, you know, risking a lot to say these things. And in a way, this song to me kind of feels like creating an intersection that I wish had existed a lot sooner. So it's kind of sweet and bittersweet at the same time. I love it.
It's beautiful, truly, and I do think that we know that, for example, during the Ferguson uprising and many other events and uprisings around the country, that Palestinians contacted protesters and said, hey, you know, here's how you survive the tear gas, make sure you have milk, you know, that kind of thing. And there was connections were built, you know. So I guess the you know, this struggle for human rights and equal dignity, it's a universal struggle, right? And it's a strange time that we're living in where we have to reassert that, you know, we have to talk about equal human rights, really, I mean, in 2021, because the structures of power really haven't transformed into a people-centered, all people-centered global culture and systems of power. So, you know, the question is, you know, can music and the arts really play a role here? Because it seems that, you know, I've been working in human rights for many years. I won't say how many, but quite a few. And, you know, we write reports, we issue press releases, we do protests. And sometimes it feels like, but is it getting better? I mean, if there are things happening, of course, things do happen. And there is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 10 steps back. It's the nature of it. But I feel like art, and especially music, maybe we need to do more of the arts when we're having these conversations, because something happens, something shifts. It's like we see our humanity, our common humanity, when we are experiencing art together. there's just a story I remember when Bob Marley, there was conflict between the two major political parties in Jamaica, and he got them on stage, the two heads of the political parties, said, "Stop fighting," and there was a lull and things happened. Something about music brings people together. So, do we think that, we can't, obviously music isn't going to change the power systems, but it may make us be more human with each other. So whoever would like to answer this question, what can music bring to this work? Because it's work, solidarity for human rights is work. What can music bring to the table here?
I have like a quick anecdote that I can share, and then I would love to hear Cam and Kareem. But I went to Ferguson in 2015, and for the Mike Brown marches, and while I was there, I interviewed someone who Kareem has worked with, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, and I asked him like a similar question, and he was basically saying that like music is the people's revenge, because you could be the best politician, you could be the best speaker, writer, whatever, but nothing gets people in the streets like a chant, like music. And so you can, burn all the records you want, you can try to suppress it, but at the end of the day, we have our voice, and that's what music is. And he was basically saying, if nothing else, music is what gets people going. And I was like, I fully agree with that. Like, music is, for me at least, and I think maybe for Cam and Kareem, that's what does it.
I'd just jump on that from you saying like it's the voice. It's that voice that wasn't quashed when people were kidnapped and transported across the world. It was the voice that wasn't destroyed. It was the voice that stayed through. And I think that we've got to be careful also not to, like you alluded to it, Karen, not be like deluded in that the music suddenly just heals everybody. And there's a lot of power plays that come in, but music at its very core can articulate an emotion in one instant moment without you having to read a page or two, as you said, of a paper, or watch a film, or even like see an image. When you hear music, you can't escape it if you are able to hear it or feel it physically, whether it be through drums, etc. So that rage comes at you, and I think through that, and through lyrics and through different instrumentation, you can actually educate people on not only the feeling of the people playing it or what they are kind of reflecting of their lives at that time, but also maybe perhaps what they want to say. And I'm sure that the amount of people that have, I found in my life anyway, have learned about political structures, oppression around the world, specifically Palestine, police oppression through hip hop, through funk, that comes from the music. So I think it's educational without being preachy. I don't think it has to be like a preachy song to teach. I think the first time you hear Tupelo, Mississippi by John Lee Hooker, you're transported to that time in somewhere that when I was younger, I'd obviously never heard of, never been anywhere near, but I knew all about it. And then you heard about, I don't know, Public Enemy. I mean, Public Enemy, Chuck D didn't need to say anything. I knew exactly what they were about as soon as I heard those samples and the beat and the movement, and then you hear the words, and then you hear the image. So for me, there's never been anything better as a performer when I play music and I see people doing Dabka, the Palestinian dance. And again, that whole joy, sadness thing, we do Dabka when we protest. The boys do Dabka before they throw the stone at the tank. They do it in Gaza when when the Israelis have set everything alight. They're doing Dabka there. It's not about, you're not ignoring what's going on. That's how you are existing in that moment, and you're stamping yourself, and that comes through music and through art. I could go on for ages, so I should stop.
That's right. Cam, any thoughts on this question?
Honestly, I think they both answered it very, very eloquently. Sorry, my phone is, I thought it was off, but I have new apps, y'all. Yeah, no, I think they answered it very, very eloquently. And honestly, music is the ultimate release, and it's a form of communication when you feel like you're not safe or like you can't really say what you need to say. And as a young woman, just thinking about some of the stuff that both Kareem and Saman said, I just think about Erykah Badu's first record and how when she first came out, everything about the record just changed the way I listened to both R&B and jazz and soul, and the things that she was saying, not only about the men in her life, but the culture that she was immersed in and the type of young woman that she was. And to see that a woman from, Texas was writing music like that and expressing that type of honesty and telling her story in that way, it really, really made me think, oh man, I can do that one day. And so now it's what I lead with when I write, when I take on projects. If it's not saying something, if it's not fulfilling me, if it's not providing me that release that I need, or giving me an outlet to say what I need to say, especially for those that can't say it themselves, it's just not something I really mess with. But projects like this, it's an opportunity to do a lot more without, leading with, this is what we're doing, this is what we're talking about, this is who we are. Something I mentioned the other day when we were talking is that, our band's mere existence is, a protest. It is a resistance. And I love that just by us showing up, that's what it is. And just us being free, that's what it is. And I think that there are few things outside of music, outside of art, that allow you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes down to it, we are human beings, right? And we have the right to express ourselves and to be ourselves and to find ourselves in art. This is part of what it means to be human. And also, I was thinking about the songs that they would sing. Ain't nobody gonna turn us around. In the civil rights movement, just over and over again, nobody's gonna turn us around, and singing it as they're walking. The dogs, the whole movement was confronted, and yet it was the songs that kept those involved really, spirits up. And we have to keep our spirits up in this day and age. It's not easy. So if you're just joining us, I want to remind the audience we have with us the artists that have created this gorgeous piece of music. Cam Franklin from Houston, Saman Rishmawi, also in Houston, and Kareem Samara from London. And they've created this beautiful piece of music called Baby Please Don't Go, with a Palestinian musical arrangement under these fantastic blues vocals. At the beginning of the program, we played the song, and there was, I'm going to admit, it was my fault. I had my player open for the program, so it was streaming while I was talking. So my bad. But I'm going to ask Jason to go ahead and play it again so we can listen to the beginning, if that's okay with you all, so that everybody who's just tuning in will be able to hear the song, and then we can continue this fantastic, really unique and precious conversation. Jason, can you go ahead and tee us up? Let's hear it again. Put on your headphones.
Now, baby, please don't go. Now, baby, please don't go. Now, baby, please don't go back to third ward. You know I love you so. Baby, please don't. here. Before I be your dog, I'll make you walk the log. Now, baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go. Now don't you call my name. Now don't you call my name. You got me way down here wearing ball chains. Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go. I'll be your man done gone. I'll be your man done gone. He left the town for me, had his shackles on. Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't Now turn your lamp down low. Now turn your lamp down low. I beg you all night long, baby, please don't go back to Third Ward, baby, please don't go, baby, please don't
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That choir section, Cam, can you talk about that choir section? It just transports, absolutely. Can you talk about that, making that?
Yeah. I honestly heard it, I feel like, before the song was even done. I was more so just really interested to see what else Kareem was going to do, because he had been adding a bunch of just different elements and trying different sounds and just trying to, figure out what worked best for him. But as we finally got there, I was like, all right, I finally get to do this thing. And it took maybe an afternoon. That choir, those tones, that's honestly a part of my vocal foundation. I grew up singing in gospel churches starting at the age of 5, and sang in them full time through age 21. And gospel is just a part of who I am, in a way that I think, in a way that I compose, whether I realize I'm doing it or not. And when I was hearing everything at the end of the song, it became less about love to me and more about transcendence. And again, going back to escapism, and I started really just thinking about sounds of the diaspora and sounds that made it to where we are today, that we still get to do. And at a certain point, at the end of the song, I kind of just felt like we were kind of rowing a little bit. And so I just imagined a choir, maybe on a ship, or maybe in a field, and like just the release that happens when you harmonize with other people. Like, if you've never done it before, when you harmonize in certain tones, there's a buzz that'll happen. And it's really, it's really lovely, and I don't really know how to explain it unless you do it. But doing all of these parts by myself, I didn't know that I would experience it. So it was a very weird sensation to have happening while I was recording it. But I knew that if it didn't happen, it wouldn't be worth having on the song. And the whole purpose of having that buzz occur, to me, meant that whoever was listening to it, you would hear the whispers. And it was meant to be a tribute to the ancestors, really, because to me, those are their tones, those are their harmonies, those are their melodies that survived. And yeah, that's what's going on there.
Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, it's there's no mistaking. It's deep, goes deep and far back. Thank you for telling us about that, because that's quite a journey, and the creative part of that is so special when you're hearing something and feeling something and able, I think, for a lot of people to just wish they had the ability to take something they're inspired by and to make it so beautiful, which you've done, all three of you. Yeah, Kareem, I wanted to also ask you, when we talked to you last week about this genesis of this project, you said that, with the killing of George Floyd, there was just this desire to create something, some bridges into the protest movement of what was happening. And, I think obviously in our country, we're faced with the situation where we have so far to go, and people don't really want to know that or deal with it often. And so we protest and we speak out. And I know that was part of your motivation. How did that, talk about that, Kareem, about how you were influenced by the killings, especially killings of Black Americans who at the hands of the police? How did that inspire you? How did that come into play here?
Well, I think it had been the sort of the end of I wouldn't say the end, but it was the end of a long process for me of questioning different power structures, regimes, from the Arab Spring kind of onwards, really, and really looking at something just not particularly from a suffering / human rights perspective, but looking at the systematic oppression and the links between those oppressions. Some music that I've done with Ryan Harvey and Shireen Lilith, which really was sparked by the migrant crisis, as it's called in Europe, with the fleeing of refugees from Syria, but also joined from migrants from other places coming into Europe. Ryan spent a lot of time in Lesbos and had witnessed the boats crossing the sea between Turkey and Greece. And that project really, I went to Baltimore a few times, and being there, speaking with activists, speaking with other artists, that whole project really put me in a sort of place where I could see all the links, and I could see the direct link between military incursion in the West Bank in Palestine to the stop, search, and murder of a Black citizen in the States. So, with different groups and initiatives and stuff, people like myself over here in London and in the Palestinian diaspora and in the Palestinian territories have always tried to show solidarity. But like Saman alluded to earlier, we always feel that more should be done and needs to be done to educate about what's happening and also to the wider politics of it. So with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, all of these kind of events were just one after the other. And there were BLM protests in London during the middle of the lockdown. The police were cracking down hard, but again, that wasn't being reported. So there was when this all came together, it's really serendipitous. Like it really wasn't calculated. It just happened, and it just happened at that time. Nasib, as we call it in Arabic, and Saman's message to me, having just the most Palestinian thing possible. Like you meet someone once, and then you end up doing this kind of stuff with. I met him on a night out for like 2 hours or something. I just came back from the toilet, and there he was, literally. So I was like, who's this guy? Like, I'm like, who invited this dude? And it's led to this through all of our histories, and Cam's ancestors calling at the end. That, I mean, I think I called a friend when she sent them through. I was like, you're not going to believe. You've not got to believe the responsibility I have to make something work with this absolute gold. You know, it was great. So everything just came together. I can't really, but it was necessary. Something had to be done, and I was just lucky enough to be provided with all of the things to be able to do a little something with the guys.
And you may be you have been recognized by the American Academy of Arts, with a possible consideration for a Grammy. You might have missed that at the beginning of the program, but we don't need that acknowledgement because this piece of music stands on its own, but it's not bad either. Saman, what about you? I mean, spin this tale for us a little bit about how you were influenced by what was happening in our country.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Houston, and I think that maybe this idea had been in the back of my head since before. I mean, we're talking 2019 is when me and Kareem met, and maybe started that process a little bit, like subconsciously. But yeah, being from Houston, and I think the sadness we all felt and the anger, the rage we all felt when the George Floyd video came out, and then also George being from Third Ward, and then also George being a musician too, maybe was all sitting somewhere in the recesses of our brain. I think that was all there. And I think also going back further, I think it probably part of where this comes from is like the way I was raised, which was I went to so many protests with my parents. I have memories of that. Listened to the blues on road trips with my parents. And I think to kind of like connect it to Kareem, like my first like introduction to like the Black British experience was watching the music video for Sirens by Dizzy Rascal. That's when I was like, oh, it's just bad everywhere. That's, you know what I mean? That's not Africa. So I think all these seeds were kind of like planted in my head, and like Kareem said, it was Nasib, like it was written. I think we had one conversation where I said, like, this is something that just had to happen. Someone was going to do it, and we were the ones who did it. We were the ones who made that intersection. So that's
thank goodness you did. Thank goodness that you did that. Mm-hmm. Cam, how about you? I'd love to also hear about I hear that you're considered the godmother in Houston among certain folks, looked up to and seen as a real light, a shining light. Talk about your work, and if you want to answer this question as well, feel free.
Well, my work is all over the place. I told someone recently that my form of relieving stress and anxiety is through creating and through working, and my form of escapism is through creating and through working. And I have been doing music since I was 5, and so every genre that would allow me in there, I would try to immerse myself and learn from, and really, really listen to the mentors that were open and respectful. And I've always been very much so about trying to spread that love back and give it back, because that's really just what was shown to me. And the older I get and the longer I do this stuff, I realize kindness isn't as common as it could be. And in reference to the godmotherness, it's kind of funny that I'm now stepping into that, because forever I was called the baby, and now I'm that, which is cool, because it means that, you know, I'm stepping into my season where, you know, I get to be the change that I want to see and help the artists that come after me hopefully have it a little easier on themselves. I again, every genre that would have me, every mentor that would have me, but I'd say the biggest things that influenced me outside of church and country was Houston hip hop, and it gave me a lot of freedom, and it gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't realize wasn't probably the most healthy or normal for a young woman. But I'm really glad that it existed, and it's made me who I am today, and it's made singing songs about human rights, singing songs about social justice issues just normal to me, and not so much conscious. And you know, this project has really allowed me to see that there's so much more that I can do. And so a lot of my work right now is on giving opportunities to young and upcoming artists here in Houston that might not get the studio credits or the work that maybe they should get, because we are very much so, even though we're in Houston, we are still very much so in Texas. And it's very difficult for a lot of artists that are, you know, trans, gay, Black, literally anything different, for them to be afforded the same opportunities. And because, you know, I've had a few wins, I have no problem lending my name to make it easier for them to get their art out there, because somebody gave me that opportunity. And I think that that's probably where that godmotherness comes from, where it's, oh, dang, I guess this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to have a bunch of artist babies, and I'm going to encourage us to, you know, root for one another, because we can't get to the places that we're trying to go with the stuff that it is that we're talking about unless we do this together.
That's
And
fantastic.
I just want to add something to like what Cam is saying. Like, not only does she throw these like regular jam sessions in Houston, which are like very inclusive for Houston artists and give people like a home, she also started like a forum for women in the creative spaces in Houston to kind of like voice their frustrations, but also like to bond with each other, because they're like, a lot of women in Houston were being like shut out of creative opportunities, and there was like a kind of like a bubbling frustration, and Cam did something with that. She like created an outlet for people to speak up on these things. And I just, the godmother thing for me is like, I think, you know, in like 10, 20, 30 years, like when we're much older, we're all going to look back at the work that Cam did and realize that, you know, she was the one who put these things together. And I just think Cam is so vital to the Houston scene. So I'm so honored to work with her.
That's
I feel
wonderful.
the same way about Saman.
That's so fantastic. And the audience has all your handles up there on the screen. And I want to encourage the audience to connect with each of these artists and support. I think one thing that is really needed now is support, is all kinds of ways to support. Buy your music, buy the music, don't just download it. Buy the music, buy the books, attend the concerts, share the word about what you're working on. So this is our chance to talk about how people can connect with activities. And while you're thinking of something that you'd like to offer the audience, let me put up, oh, go ahead, Kareem, and then I'll put mine up at the end.
Something that I'm doing at the moment that's taken up the last month or so is that in what we're calling the Unity Intifada in Palestine, where you would have heard about it through the so-called property dispute in an area of Jerusalem called Sheikh Jarrah, where Palestinian families were being moved, cleansed from their homes, which then led to more violence and more attacks on Gaza. One of the first times in memory, Palestinians were protesting across historic Palestine, and Palestinian citizens of Israel were rising up and were subsequently really hit hard by the Israeli police, and around 2,000 young Palestinians, many minors, the youngest 12, were arrested and have been lost in the legal system. And I put together a mixtape with one of my collaborators, Smoke Poets. I'm gonna give the handle to the administrator to share. Oh, it's beladnayouth.bandcamp.com. It's a mixtape for $10, or you can give more. That money goes directly to organizations inside Israel that will send lawyers, and that's Beladna Youth. Sorry, I don't know why that's not done that properly. I'll do it again. And the money will go directly to getting lawyers to go help the kids, and also to the families, predominantly poor working class families living inside the Palestinian ghettos, inside what is we call Palestine 48.
So while you're getting that Baladna Youth link, if you want to put it up so Jason can put it up on the screen, let me also mention 2 events. Jason, you can put up the flyer for the event that will take place in 4 minutes from now. We're ending in 4 minutes. And in 4 minutes from now, there's an event at 1 o'clock called Stand with the Six. So the 6 main, most prominent, well-respected human rights organizations in Palestine have been designated by the government of Israel as terrorist organizations. And so the world is reacting to this and standing up against it. It's quite a profound injustice. Their members are subject to arrest, asset seizure, etc. So there'll be an event at 4 o'clock today that it's called #StandWithThe6. There's a toolkit there that you can participate in that. And then tomorrow there will be the interview with representatives of all the 6 organizations that have been designated as terrorist organizations. It's co-sponsored by the Carter Center tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. And I'm looking for the link here. We will just look for this event. I don't see a link in there, but please check in with the Carter Center Twitter page, and we'll make sure that that's available. Go ahead, Kareem. Did you Azrak 1 Bandcamp? Is that right?
That's from Saman. That's about buying Baby Please Don't Go.
Okay, so let's do that first. Jason, if you want to put up azrak1.bandcamp.com so people can buy the song. And then Kareem, if you'll put the name of in the chat of the other one.
Yeah.
balandayouth.bandcamp.com.
That's right, yeah.
So this is another project that you can support. Cam, what can you offer us any way for people to connect with you? Is it your Instagram? Is that the best way?
So I put a link to my link tree in the chat. But if they follow me on Instagram, the link in my bio will also take them to my link tree as well. I got a lot of stuff going on outside of Azrak. My main job is with a band called The Suffers in Houston, and we have a record coming out next year. I just finished executive producing a record called Bayou City Comeback Chorus, which is featuring a lot of different up-and-coming LGBTQIA, and also just a lot of folks that have gotten screwed over locally here. I was given a grant, and so I used that money to hire them to be on this record. And so that will come out later on this year. And I'm going to be in a film. So all the links to everything I'm doing, including Azrak, is in that link. So
that's fantastic. Everybody, you have the information. There's I just want to end with a thanks, first of all, to Josh Griffin, our coordinator. Will be moderating the next roundtable. Don't miss it. Kareem is going to work with us on the second roundtable like this. And Josh will be the moderator. Thank you, Josh. Thank you to Jason Parker for behind the scenes production. And I just, Josh sent me this quote to read, which is perfect, which is, in the dark times, this Brecht quote, in the dark times, will there also be singing? Yes, there will be singing about the dark times. And we need the singing in all times, especially the dark times. The best music comes out of the dark times, if you notice. I'd like to thank each of you, Cam Franklin, Saman Ashrawi, Kareem Samara, for joining us today and for our audience. This has been fantastic. Join us again.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.